husband and children or playing basketball. Sergeant Dawkins, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, I've never been a keynote speaker before, so I figured this should be fun. So bear with me. I might be a little bit scattered. I didn't want to be the type of person who was going to be reading anything to you, but I wrote some stuff down. It's been kind of a rough past week, and I'm sharing this for a reason. For one, on my mother's side, we lost an aunt last week, and Sunday night, I found out that our family lost a very, very beloved uncle of ours. So it's been kind of rough. I've been working through an injury. I was rear-ended in a car accident back in December, and so if you see me limping around, I'm just working through that. Then on top of that, I'm wearing a mourning band in honor of Cowlitz County Sheriff's Deputy Justin Rozier, who was killed in the line of duty over the weekend. So I say all of that to say this. As law enforcement, I think it's really important for people to know that before I am defined by my profession, I'm a human being. And, we go through things that everybody else goes through. We have to work our ways through all of the different challenges in life, and yet still be strong enough and be present and be capable of being there for people in need and being the shoulder that sometimes people need to lean on as well. So there's that. At the end of the day, though, I get to be here. And I say that because, sometimes we look at work and jobs and stuff as, I have to go to school. I have to go to work. No, I get to be here. And if you change your mindset with how you deal with life, it changes the outcome for you. And so for me, today is an opportunity to connect with people that I don't always get a chance to connect with. I don't get to talk to people all the time who want to talk to me. So there's that. And sometimes people don't want to hear what I have to say, but the fact is that you're here today and I get to take advantage of that. So thank you. It's an honor to be able to speak to you today. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself. Apparently that's kind of what this is about. Just my story. So I grew up locally. I grew up here in Tacoma. I was a quiet girl from Hilltop. And I think that's kind of important because growing up on Hilltop, I grew up in a time where the area was ridden with gang violence, and I saw a lot of things. I saw a lot of things happen to people I grew up with. Even family members are not here to this day due to gang violence. But I didn't care for the police. Just going to keep it real with you. I wasn't the type of person who was eager to run up to a police officer as a kid to ask for a sticker. I wasn't the type of kid who was going to run up to an officer to talk about all my problems and say, hey, great to have you here in the neighborhood. That just wasn't me. I personally saw things that I didn't agree with, that I didn't like, and for that reason, I'm just going to be honest, I didn't really like the police. Now, that's not to say that I was a troublemaker. I wasn't that kind of kid that got into a bunch of trouble or anything like that, but that was just my own personal outlook when it came to law enforcement. So I ended up graduating from high school. I worked at Safeway as a bagger when I was in high school. I played sports. I was in student government. Just to give you a picture, I was a nerd, pretty much, an athletic nerd. And so anyway, after high school, I ended up going to the University of Washington, where I got my bachelor's degree in political science. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought that I wanted to go into law. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. So I thought, political science seems like a good degree to major in to get into law school. And while I was at UW, I ended up in an internship at Echo Glen Children's Center. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Echo Glen, but it's a juvenile rehabilitation. And as an intern, I got a chance to work with incarcerated youth, and that was pretty cool because I always liked working with kids. And that ended up turning into a full-time job when I got my degree, and I became a residential counselor there. So I worked there for about 5 years or so altogether after I got my degree. And then my brother-in-law, who also grew up in the same area as I did, meantime, he became a King County Sheriff's deputy. And he comes to me one day and he's like, hey, you need to seriously consider doing this work. This is like the best job ever. And I'm like, no. I have no desire to be the police. And so he invites me to come along on a ride-along, and I went on a couple of ride-alongs with him. And to my surprise, it was nothing that I thought it would be. Here he was. This is a person I know very well. He's married to my sister, and he's also a police officer. And to see him do the work and still be the same person that I know was kind of intriguing to me. So I went on more ride-alongs, and eventually I went with other people, and I thought, you know what, I can do this. And long story short, I ended up testing for the department. It took me 2 times, and in 2001, I got hired. And in fact, my academy date was the day after 9/11. So just to give you an idea of the time that I came into this job. A lot of people quit. We had like 4 people from our class. They didn't return after that happened because they were like, yeah, this is not what I signed up for. And so with all that said, you probably wonder, well, why would you want to go into law enforcement if that's how you grew up thinking about police officers? I guess, for one, I looked at it this way. You know, I played sports, and in sports you can sit in the stands as the spectators, and you can boo, you can yell. Sometimes you might throw somebody off with a free throw when you scream or something, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot that you can do from the sidelines when you're complaining. But when you're in the game, you have control of what the ball's doing. You have control of what's happening on the court. And for me, personally, I decided that I wanted to do this because I wanted to be the officer that I wish I would have seen growing up, that I personally didn't get a chance to interact with. I thought, well, maybe I can be the officer that I want to see. And in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in the world. And so rather than sitting around and booing, I decided I'm going to get into the game. So my current job. Like I mentioned before, I tested twice. The first time I was 22 years old, and I was told that I needed to mature a little bit, that I didn't have the maturity level to do the job. I don't know what that was about because 1 year later I still made it. So 23, I got hired with the department, and it was not an easy road. I think for me, I'm super competitive. So I put a lot on myself when it came to pushing myself and challenging myself. And it wasn't so much the pressures of the job, of the academy, of the training. I just didn't want to be the one to let anybody down. I didn't want to let myself down. And I had a lot of support. So I didn't do it on my own. My family supported me. My dad couldn't have been happier. He retired from the military. So for him, it was like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever, because he wanted us to go into the military. And that wasn't the path that I wanted to take, but this would have been kind of the next best thing. My mom, on the other hand, while she was supportive, she was scared to death. So she started watching the news all the time. Then would like to report to me all the different terrible things that she was seeing on the news. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I got this, I got this. And then I had my siblings and friends who would be like, oh, shoot, you're about to be the po-po. And yet they still supported me. And they knew that I wanted to do this because I wanted to be, again, that officer that I would want to have interacted with. So I move on from the academy, and then I'm in field training. So that's where we have an officer in the car with you at all times, watching everything you're doing, helping you get through everything. Last day of the second month of the academy for me, my dad passed away. He had pancreatic cancer, and we knew it was coming. And I was working through that, and that was very, very difficult. And to this day, it's hard for me to talk about. Forever, I wouldn't talk about it, but I'm sharing my story with you guys today for a reason. And for the first time in my life, in anything, I actually wanted to quit. So I took the time off for bereavement leave, and I told my mom, I'm done. I'm just going to go back to Echo Glen and work with the kids. It'll be good. It'll be fine. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stuff going on where I don't feel like going back and doing that. I just want to be here. I'll move in with you, and I'll help you and get you through this, and we're going to be good. And my mom, of all people, said, no. And she has this saying, we're okay. So she goes, we're okay. And I'm like, here we go with this we. I'm talking about you, you know. And so she says, I'm okay. And you have people who need you. They need you. So you need to go back out there and do it. So I did. And I decided to make the most out of this experience. I never, ever accepted handouts, and I never will. I personally am the type of person who wants to work hard to rightfully earn anything that I'm given. And so I worked hard to get through this program. And so I worked patrol with King County for about 6 years. I worked all over the north end. That's where I was initially assigned. I worked in the city of Shoreline, and then I became a detective in 2006 for the city of Berrien, where I worked as a detective for about 10 years. And then during that time, I decided to go back to school, and that's when I went back to UW to get my master's degree. In the meantime, somewhere in between there, 2004 it was, I got married, and I ended up with 3 children. So I have 3 young daughters, and my motivation now is to inspire them. Before I was married, I was more interested in making sure I made my parents proud. And now it's important to me to be the right example to make my daughters proud as well. So I go back to school, I got my master's degree in public administration, and then I decided to take the sergeant's exam and got promoted to sergeant in 2006. And then as a detective, I took on recruiting. So I got a chance to work as the department recruiter for almost 2 years, which was the best thing ever because I had a chance to reach out and talk to people about this work and to help them to achieve their dreams. So that's pretty much my story in a nutshell. And I want to take the rest of the time to just offer you all pointers and words of encouragement as you pursue whatever it is that you're looking for in the field of criminal justice. I think it's most important to understand what it means to empower yourself. So empower yourself, and I'm not talking just about the authority, that people perceive law enforcement to have, not just the power and the authority. I'm talking about empowering yourself with tools, for one, with education. And all of you are here, obviously you have goals, and you're pursuing some form of education and continue on that route. So when it comes to this job, I would encourage people to take classes about people, whether it be social sciences, psychology. The more you know, the better you are equipped to do this line of work. The more you know about people. Empower yourself by taking also communication classes. Communication, in my opinion, is the most important tool in law enforcement. If I can't talk to people, if I can't communicate with my partners, if I can't talk to the public, it's going to be a really tough road. It's going to be a very tough call to get through if I don't know how to talk to people. And communication, by the way, obviously talking is sometimes the first thing that comes to mind, but communication involves listening. It's sending and receiving information, right? So we're talking working on your listening, your writing, your verbals, your nonverbals. There's nonverbal communication as well. I would encourage you to consider taking foreign languages because we are living in such a rich area with diversity and culture, and you can almost pick anything and it's going to benefit you. So I would encourage you to empower yourself with education. Empower yourself socially. And what do I mean by that? They say birds of a feather flock together. And sometimes that's associated with a negative. We'll make it a positive. When you connect yourself and associate yourself with people who are successful, it becomes you. So you pick and choose who you associate yourself with wisely, and that helps to become you. Socially, with culture. We're all really afraid sometimes of connecting with people who are different than us. And sometimes it's like, I don't have anything in common with that one. I don't really deal with him or her because I don't have much in common. But you would be amazed at what you can learn from people who you have differences with, people who are different from what your norm may be. And I learn that every single day. A child can teach me so much, as well as an elderly person, as well as a disabled person. And then we can go on and on when it comes to culture. But I challenge you to connect yourself socially with people who are different. And as a woman, it's very important to also connect yourself with women, to have other women support, and also be the person who's willing to uplift people. Empower yourself personally. And on a personal level, I'm talking about health. You are what you eat. And so, for example, I think it's very important to take the time to pay attention to what you're eating, pay attention to your exercise. Health is everything. And if you don't take care of yourself, what good are you for anybody? And I'm not just talking about the community, but for your family, for your loved ones. Take the time to care about yourself. It doesn't matter what your religion may be, but if you are into prayer or meditation, take time for you because it's very important. Recognize your strengths as well as your weaknesses. Sometimes we look at our strengths and we think that's good enough. No, make your strengths stronger. Because if you build on those strengths, those are some things that are going to be able to help you in the future. And then know what your weaknesses are, and then build on those. And sometimes, you know what, your weaknesses may stay your weaknesses, and that's okay, because you can always continue to build on your strengths. And be competitive. That's very important. That's what helps to motivate you. I think competition pushes us to be our best in anything. When you think about any sport, any games, even when it comes to tests, I don't know if sometimes you all have an opportunity to see how everybody does in tests, but I remember in the academy, they would post our test scores on the board, and I'd be like, I will be darned if my score is the lowest one. I'm not the one. I want to make sure that I'm in the top 5. I remember when we would run in the academy, I'd look around like, okay, I'm going to beat you. I don't care. I'm going to be top 5. I'm going to finish. And you know what? That's what forces you to be your best, because if you just go with what you think is your best, I can guarantee you got that much more in you. And it just kind of reminds me of, in the academy, I was really, really skinny, and I was made fun of in fights. They'd pick me up by my belt, throw me. And while that was a weakness, I also knew, though, that, well, I have strengths. I'm fast, so I can run a person down. But being that I'm smaller, I have to build on that. I got to figure out, what am I going to do by the time I catch this person? So that's great. I've run them down, and now I didn't take the time to recognize that this could be a deficiency. So I took it seriously. I took my training seriously so that I would always be in the fight if there was one, and I'd be standing in the end. Don't focus on what you do have, or on what you don't have, but emphasize what you do, is what I'm trying to say here. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think that sometimes the fear of making mistakes, the fear of uncertainty is what prevents us from even stepping forward sometimes. The fear of giving a wrong answer is why half the time people don't want to raise their hands, right? Give yourself permission to make mistakes. Because if you don't make mistakes, sometimes that can mean you're not trying and you're not learning. But what's important with mistakes is that when you make them, you learn from them. And you learn not to make those same mistakes again. Mistakes are important in the learning process. And by the way, the things that I'm speaking of is not just for this job, but honestly, it's for life. And turn your mistakes into teachable moments. What did I learn from this? I laugh at myself. I learned to. Before I was so serious, I'd be so mad at mistakes, and I'd stay there in that place. Just stay there like, I messed up, and I don't want to do that again. Nope, I'm done. Whereas now, I can truly laugh at myself, or I can say, you know what? I messed that one up. Yep. Here's how I'm going to fix that, and this is not going to happen again. And I spoke a little bit about fear, but again, fearlessness is important. And when I speak of fearlessness, I'm not talking about bravery or cowardice. I'm speaking of fear of failure or self-doubt. Know and face them. Know your fears, know what they are, and be willing to face them. Push yourself to your absolute limit. And sometimes you can be encouraged by what other people are doing. Like, you know what, if these people are doing it, the only person that's stopping me from doing it is me. Balance is important. Empower yourself with that. In this field, it's fantastic to have friends who do the same work. It's great to have friends who have a lot in common with you, but it's really important to stay true to who you really are. It's important to stay true to your culture. It's important to stay grounded. So if I run around, I'll give you an example. I mean, I've been told by my brother, by my sister, even by my husband at times, look, you ain't at work, don't be talking to me crazy. It's important to know when to separate, because you know what, truth be told, sometimes, yes, you have to be firm when you talk to people in this line of work. And then you don't want to come home and talk to, 3-year-old the same way you're talking to somebody who needed to be talked to that way. So it's important to understand separation and to balance yourself. When it's time to be a mom, I'm going to be a mom. And that balance, that kind of stuff, goes back to self-care, taking care of yourself so that you can be a balanced person, knowing when to turn it off, knowing when to turn it on. So, and identify your motivation. So I told you guys my story and what drove me to get myself into this job. And only you know your story as far as what you want to do in your life and why you want to do it. But motivation is important when it comes to achieving goals, because without motivation, it's very hard to achieve a goal. It's kind of like, well, what's the point? If I set a goal and I don't have any motivation to do it, it might be a lot harder to accomplish that goal. So for me, again, purpose was representing, honestly, representing underrepresented in this field, and being that officer that I personally wanted to have that experience with as a citizen. And I'd encourage you to document your goals. Write them down. In policing, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So turn that into real life. Document your goals. Write them down. I do. Self-talk is really important to me. And I mean, it may or may not be to you, but I have my children look in the mirror every day and give themselves affirmations. When you speak things into existence, they become. And you have to look yourself in the eyes to believe this is what you want, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it. Make it happen for yourself and hold yourself to that, like I said, by documentation or by affirmations. Lastly, I just want to say, don't be the person who gets in the way of your own success. And again, that's going back to operating out of fear or not operating due to fear. Telling yourself what you can't do versus allowing yourself and challenging yourself and pushing your limits. Those are all things that I personally had to do to get to where I am right now. And every single day is just another opportunity for me to push even further, even when there are times that I don't want to, even when there are times that I just don't have it in me, where I'm like, I am just so tired today. Those kids wore me out last night. Nope, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing. So it was like in my last week of grad school, it was like a UW Appreciation Day, and they were giving out free t-shirts. So of course everybody wants a free t-shirt. I'm going to get a free t-shirt that represents my school, and I went and grabbed it, and when I opened it, it said, "Be boundless, be boundless." And I wanted to just share that with you. Be boundless, and what does that mean? Don't set limits for yourself, and don't let anybody set limits for you. You are the captain of your ship. You decide what it is that you want to do, and you make that happen. Don't stop yourself based off of fear. Push yourself until you're like, you know what, can't do that anymore. And don't let somebody tell you, you can't do this because. I had that. Oh yeah, you're too small. Or you're really quiet. This isn't for you. Be boundless, push yourself, and achieve your goals. That's all I've got. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Sergeant Dawkins, again. Can we give her another round of applause? Thank you for sharing that. So now I'm going to introduce the panelists, including Sergeant Dawkins, and they're going to speak about their own individual experiences in the criminal justice field. Please raise your hand when I introduce you. Starting from right to left, I'd like to welcome Captain Monica Alexander, who works for Washington State Patrol. Clarissa Fletcher, who is a juvenile probation counselor for Pierce County Juvenile Detention Center. Jessica Perva, who is an investigator for the Washington Correction Center for Women. Helen Stephen, a patrol officer for Tacoma Police Department. Yolanda Geiler, a corrections deputy for Pierce County Sheriff's Department, Corrections Bureau. And of course, you all know Sergeant Dawkins. Captain Alexander, would you like to start off?
Okay. So how much do you want me to tell? What do you want me to start with? You want me to just say that again? Whatever I want to tell you, oh, you're in for a treat. I'm going to tell you everything now. So my name is Monica Alexander, and I have been with Washington State Patrol for 23 years. I joined the State Patrol because, very similar to Loy, I wanted to make a difference in my community. This is my, I say, 3.5 career. So I am a licensed cosmetologist. I used to be a flight attendant, and now I'm a captain for the State Patrol. Weird path, right? No, it all goes together because it's all about talking to people and interacting with people. I really love people. I love interaction with people. Some of them with the State Patrol have been really wonderful, and some of them have been a little challenging. But I wanted my son, I have one child, and he's a grown man now. But when I started looking into law enforcement, he was 2. And I was about to become a single mother. I was going through a divorce, and I thought, this is the perfect time to become a trooper. It really wasn't, but that in my mind, it was. And so I looked at lots of different law enforcement agencies, and I was a flight attendant for United Airlines, so I rode with Las Vegas Metro and LAPD and Seattle Police Department, and I looked at King County Sheriff's Department, and then I landed on the patrol. And there were a lot of reasons I did, and we might talk about that a little bit later, but I don't want to take up too much time. But I really wanted my son to look at me and be proud and think that I was the greatest thing ever. My son is now 26, and he does still think I'm the greatest thing ever. He took me to show and tell when he was a little boy, and I cried. And so all those things happened. But I have really enjoyed my time at the State Patrol. Nothing is perfect, but it has been amazing. And I've got a couple of years before I retire, and that's going to be really, really amazing. But I'll stop right there. How about that?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I started this work because I wanted to help children. When I, back up a few years from that, I was here at Pierce College, and I was in a program. It was therapeutic recreation, and I thought I wanted to work in a nursing home, and that got really old because people kept dying. And so I was volunteering with my church, and we went to Raymond Hall, or juvenile court, one Sunday, and it was there. I looked at the kids, and as I was talking with the kids, I thought, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm supposed to be, and I've been there for the last almost 24 years. I started my career as a detention officer, so I was working in the pod with the kids, and I really enjoyed that. But one of the first things I really noticed is that being in this field and being a woman, when there's a response, the first thing the guys say is, you get the door, or you get this and you get that. And I said, no, I went through the same training at the academy that you went through. I'm going to be the first one to the door. I'm going to open the door, and I'm going to be the first one in the fight. But one of the other things I learned quick, too, was that also being a woman does have some advantages. Most of the kids would say, Clarissa, you remind me of my mom. You sound like my mom when you fuss at me. And that was an advantage because kids, respect their mothers. And so I used that to my advantage. And I found that out real early that was not a weakness, but I found it as a strength. So that was really good. What's motivated me to stay in this field is helping families. We see so oftentimes kids making mistakes that, could challenge the rest of their life. And so my life mission is to tell kids about, how to stay on the right path, how to make this situation, whatever landed you in juvenile court, how to take that situation and turn around and don't stay in that place. And so that's my motivation for staying there. And I just love what I do, and I'm also looking forward to retirement, though. But for now, I'm loving what I do, and I just want to motivate each kid that I come in contact with, make them a better person.
Hello. Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Jessica Perva. I'm an investigator, Washington Correction Center for Women. And what motivates me to do this work and how I started, I had no idea that I wanted to go into law enforcement at all. I was looking for a job to finish putting myself through college. I have 2 young children. And I started out as an administrative assistant in the Special Investigations Services Network. Primarily, that network investigated security threat groups, a lot of gangs, and after starting, it only took about a month, and then I realized this is what I wanted to do. Something about investigations, finding one piece of the puzzle and putting the whole thing together is extremely intriguing, and it really caught my attention. So I promoted to Investigator 1, and then I promoted to Investigator 2, and that brought me to the facility. Since being at the facility, there's definitely challenges. When you're in a prison with 900 female inmates of all different custody levels, sometimes you have to use your mom face quite a bit, and you come in contact with people that are dealing with different things, and you have to be prepared for that, for the attitudes, for the generosity, for the emotions that go with the job. And that's really taught me a lot about myself, and it's taught me a lot about communicating with people. In 10 years, I see myself still being an investigator, hopefully chief at some point, but I do want to continue this path, and it gives me motivation. That's it.
Can you hear me? My path was a little bit different than everyone's here. When I was in elementary school, I grew up in Tacoma. I was in elementary school, we had a job fair, and it was in the 70s, and it was the first time I had ever seen a female police officer. And at that point, I said, that's what I'm doing. So my path was easy. I always knew that's what I was going to do. Everybody knew, my family, my friends knew, all through schooling, that I was going to become a police officer. But I was kind of that immature friend, the immature one of my group, so I didn't apply until I was 28. I felt like I needed a little bit more life experience before I got into my career. So I was one of the oldest students in my academy class, which was fine, because I proved to all of them that age didn't really matter. My goal, what I love doing is I am a community caretaker. I got into this job to work with communities, to work with people, and to work with youth. That is my thing. So from the get-go, as a brand new officer, that is what I started doing. I'm 22 years in law enforcement now, and I get the opportunity to come and do things like this. I work a lot with the youth, my elementary schools, junior high schools, colleges. I work out in the community. I have 4 children, and I work where I live. And that was kind of a plan of mine, because during that time, the opioid use was very strong. I worked with a lot of families who were trying to deal with their children who were addicted. And that got me thinking, I want my kids to be on the right path. So I knew every single one of their friends. I knew all the kids in all the schools. So when my daughter came home in high school and said, hey, I'm going over to Johnny's house, and I said, no, you're not. He's a drug dealer. That was my purpose, was to protect my children. And I don't think most parents can say, when my kids come home from school and they talk about students or things that are going on, I know who those students are. So we have this very close bond and this great relationship, and I love that. That's not for everyone, but that's what I do, and that's my thing, and that's why I'm here, and I'll continue to do it until I don't like doing it anymore.
Well, as it says, my name is Yolanda Geiler, and I am currently employed with the Pierce County Sheriff Department, and I am definitely, it's interesting to hear a mixture of the stories here that kind of blend in a little bit with mine, but then on the other hand, I do stand out a little bit because I was not interested. I had no clue that I was going to be doing this job. So I was working in retail. I was managing a store for 12 years and thought I was going to be doing that for the rest of my life until sales dropped and they kicked me out. So I got fired from the job, and of course anybody that's been unemployed knows what that's like. And and this is before the age of computers and going on the internet and all that. I had to go do the old-fashioned way, and that was put in applications and go to the library to learn about jobs and things like that. So I had no clue I was going to be doing this, and so I was obviously not in a good place, and until my brother told me, he was a reserve deputy for a minute, and he was the one that said to me, I think you could do this job. I go into the jail every so often, take people in, and he said, I think you can do this. I looked at him like he was nuts, because other than seeing things on TV, you know, cops and things like that, I had no idea what the jail did. And another thing for me is I was at 30 years old. So 30 years old, I was not looking to get into a career that was going to be more physical for me or anything. I had no clue. So, but I went ahead and looked into it, and again, looked at the library and saw all the books on corrections and all that and studied it and decided I was going to go ahead and test and took the big chance. And well, when I finally decided I was going to see what the testing was about, that was another thing that scared me because it involved physical activity. And physical activity meant more than aerobics, you know, doing the little step aerobics. I had to go and run, and I had to do a little bit of weightlifting. And for our test to get inside, to get hired on, we had to do a obstacle course and also a dummy drag. Didn't see myself doing that. But of course, I pushed my way, and after about 3 months of really making it work for me and deciding I wanted to just see where it was going to lead me, I made it work, took the test, and passed, and surprised myself on that line. But anyway, I passed, and then when I got hired on and went through the whole process, and again, one of those processes that every step of the way, and I know all these ladies know when it comes to going through the process how nerve-wracking it can be because your whole life is out there. I had to talk about myself and tell them about myself. And so, and like I tell a lot of people, you know, it's your life, you have to own it. Well, that's what I did. I had to own my life. So I put it out there, nothing crazy, but just, you know, that you have to go and talk about yourself. So went through the process, got hired on, and again, at 30 years old, I was like, what did I get myself into? So the whole time while I'm going through the process and getting trained, and never held a gun, never saw a gun other than on TV, and now they're putting a gun in my hand and giving me bullets to go with it. So on top of that, I had to now go out and learn how to shoot a weapon. So of course, I conquered that, and not an expert shot, but I shot at the target and hit it. So mastered that, and so, you know, still to this day, I am one of those people that still are thinking I'm walking around with a gun. So, but with that being said, I got in there, and even after a couple of, let's say some years, I kept saying, okay, I'm out. In 5 years, I'm going to do this for 5 years, and I'm out because I just don't see myself doing this, you know, for the rest of my time here, and, you know. And so, but eventually it grows on you. You know, you see what you are doing, you're seeing what kind of impact you are making on people, and you are seeing that this isn't all a negative type environment. And a lot of people will say to me, oh my God, working in the jail. And it's one of those things, and I'm not gonna ever put it in that thing, if I can do it, you can do it kind of thing, because it is not for everybody, okay? It's not for everybody. But it was one of those things that I made the choice to do it and make it work for me. And so I am working in this field now. I have managed to do a lot of different things. I get bored really easy, so I became a peer, I work on the peer support team, which means that when we have people that get a chance, or employees or officers go through things, I'm there and I want to help them and get through a lot of the things. And so one of my other things I get a chance to do is I work with our cadet program. And And I see a lot of young faces here, and of course I see a couple of them that I recognize going into this field and that are interested in it, and I'm always happy, and they know that I'm always singing the correction song, about trying this field out. So one of the things is they told me, my coworkers always tease me about being a mother to the group, and I'm okay with that until somebody told me, I think now at this age you're a grandmother to them. And I have to say, I think they're kind of right. So, but other than that, I get a chance to work with the young people and introduce them to this field, which is exciting for me because this is one of those well-kept secrets, because a lot of people do not realize, just like myself, 30-some years ago, didn't realize what this career was about. There's a lot of people that don't know what corrections is about, and that's why I'm here to tell you that it is a field that is a well-kept secret, but it is a very good career field to get into and it's not about the negative. You can get in there and do a lot of positive things. Yes, there's some negativity in there, but you can overcome that, and it is, like a lot of times they're going to tell you, it is what you make it, and that's what this field is about. It's what you get in there and you can make an impact, and it is about overcoming a lot of things for me. And one thing I forgot to mention is I did get my AA through Pierce College. Yay! I know. So, and of course my focus was on criminal justice, but I did that after I got hired on, and when I did that, I was definitely focused on wanting to better myself in this field, and so I went ahead and did some of that. So, definitely one of those things that every step of the way was a challenge for me in overcoming things, but I did it. I overcame it, so.
It's not working? Thank you guys for sharing. Can we give another round of applause for everyone that shared? So now we'll take some questions from the audience and our live stream. Bobby, Rick, and Sydney from our criminal justice staff will be walking around with microphones to get you. Remember, we have about 40 minutes, so please limit the length of your questions and allow room for responses. Please state your name first and then your question. So, any questions?
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Platoon. I appreciate you all being here today. My question is for our keynote speaker, Sergeant Dawkins. Sergeant, you briefly mentioned how you have 3 young daughters and a husband at home. How has working in a criminal justice profession affected your family and personal life?
That's a great question. Thank you. Well, there have been times that, for one, the job can be demanding, and then it can be even more demanding if you allow it to be. There are times that I've had to learn how to balance that because I'd work a lot. I'd take on the overtime, and then when I realized that my daughters were saying, "Are you going to be home in the morning? Are you here tomorrow? Are you going to be here for dinner tonight?" I realized that because I have the ability to kind of cut back, I did. They are very proud. My entire family is very proud of what I do. So, I do get a chance to go and speak to their schools. They like to bring me to show and tell, and it's like the proudest moment ever. So it's really important that they support me with what I do, and it's equally important for me to support them, right? So the balance was everything for me. But all in all, it works out. We make it work.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to answer that question on the panel? Because that's a pretty intense question.
So I'll answer it. I was a single mom for about 10 years of my career, and then I got married about 11 years ago. And it has been really great because my husband also works for the State Patrol. He is now the assistant chief, and so everybody says, "Who's the boss?" Blah, 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 whatever. You know who the boss is. But it's really awesome because he understands. We get each other, we understand, and we teach each other a lot. There's a lot of things that he learns, and he'll come right home and he goes, we got to talk about this while it's still fresh in my mind. And so we've studied together, we have interviewed for jobs against each other, and I go, as long as one of us comes out with it, that's what counts. And so I go, we're going to double team them, right? Yeah, honey. And so, but when we were taking the promotion test for lieutenant, we asked them to let us go in one right behind the other, because we didn't want anybody to think that like I went in and then the next day he would test, that I would share answers with him or vice versa. So he would go in, he'd come out, I'd go right in the same door that he came out of, and so everybody knows that we weren't cheating or sharing information. But we did do a lot of studying together. We have really encouraged each other, and like I said, in December he was promoted to assistant chief, and I'm extremely proud of him. He's a great chief, and we'll see how it goes from here. But it has been really great, and it's been good for my son, because the State Patrol allows you, if your child is sick, I can use my sick leave to take care of my son. So that time while it was just me taking care of him, I would use my sick leave or vacation time or whatever it took to be a part of my son's life and to support what he was doing as well. And then I also had a lot of troopers that supported me and went to my son's basketball games or baseball games. When I couldn't go, they would show up, and if they were in, because I was based in King County, but I lived in Pierce County, so some of my friends that lived in Pierce County, they go, I'm going to Spencer's game, and so then they'd send me pictures, they would do whatever, but they all helped me a lot with him. So it's been a really, really awesome opportunity to be a part of the State Patrol family, and the support that they have given has been tremendous.
I'm not gonna lie, it was hard, okay? I had 4 kids under the age of 9, and I was working graveyard shift. I didn't sleep, my kids didn't sleep, I was tired, I was crabby, but when I got to work, I did the best that I could to be the best person that I could be. And when I got home, I tried to be that best person as well, but I'm sure if you talk to my children, they would probably say I wasn't the nicest. But we worked through it, and I talked from the time my kids were very, very little. I talked to them about my job and what I did, and I would come home and tell them about my day. I didn't keep anything from them because I wanted them to know what the real world was like. And I would tell them about a house that I went to where a child, they had no food, or they didn't have just the basic necessities. And just because I didn't want them to think that their life was the only world, and I wanted them to get to know other people, regardless of where they come from. And I think that it worked. My boys are in the military. I have a daughter who's at the University of Pittsburgh who is taking Arabic studies. She's going to Jordan in the fall to study, and she wants to work for the federal government doing, I'm not sure what. And then I have a 16-year-old daughter who is at the School of the Arts in Tacoma, and she's not sure what she wants to do yet, but I'm very proud of them. They're very strong children, and that was my goal, was to make sure that they turned out okay. And once they moved out, I did not miss them, just so you know.
That's also
My name is Chad Mohamed Oba. The question is for the keynote speaker. You talked about learn to connect with people with different cultures. So in this case, if we have a society that is scared of connecting with people who are different from them, how do you think that can affect the criminal justice?
Could you repeat the last part of the question? If we have a
If
society
we
of
have
people,
a society that's afraid of connecting people who are different from them, how can that affect the criminal justice?
Well, for one, I was fortunate to grow up in an area that was a pretty decent melting pot of people. So personally for me, it's not difficult for me to connect with people that I'm not used to, or people who are different cultures. I love it. I embrace that. I think that it's important because when you don't know anything about, especially here in law enforcement, we don't have a choice when it comes to who's calling for us. We don't have a choice when it comes to who's in the car, if you had to do a traffic stop on them, what you get is what you get. And it's so important to be able to know something about, just as much as you can know about different cultures, because it helps us to understand. It helps us to understand why people do some of the things that they do when we walk into homes, why somebody might be very upset because we've got our boots on in a home that is shoes off, right? And I think that there being a lack of willingness to learn and to connect with other cultures, I think it's a detriment for this job because it causes a bigger disconnect than what we already have, unfortunately. It's tough enough that we're working against a lot of people who have their own biases and perceptions about us. And unfortunately, yeah, there are people in this field who have biases when it comes to other cultures as well. And so as long as we have that and we operate under that, there's going to be a disconnect and more difficulties and challenges with being able to get our jobs done and being able to interact appropriately, I think, with the public.
Hi, my name is Tyrese Johnson, and this is kind of a question for everybody. If you guys can choose on who would like to answer. I'm gonna speak for myself. For someone that doesn't kind of really know exactly if I want to go fully criminal justice or try to do something spectacular in the civilian world, you know, how could I get a decision? How would you guys help me to do that?
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 20.
Okay, perfect. So you're right at that age. So this is a good industry to be able to expose young people to what we do. And I could speak for that because I work with the cadets and work as an advisor. And so we're lucky enough in the Pierce County Sheriff Department to get to introduce corrections as well as patrol side.
Okay.
So we want to be able to expose that a young person to that and let them see what it is what we do, and if they're interested. Now, you get in there and you can get a chance. You're going to be in a uniform. You're going to get a chance to be out in the public. You're representing the sheriff department or any department that you choose to go to, because this cadet program is similar to like the Explorer type programs. So this is, it's going to be something that's going to allow you to see if this job could be for you, or this career field could be for you.
Okay.
So if you're not quite sure, see me.
Experience?
And we could talk about, if you're interested in at least checking it out and coming to a meeting and to see what we do. Now, I can tell you it is a commitment, and again, because you are representing a department, we want you to take some pride in that and show some commitment and show up to meetings and show up to trainings and show up to events and things like that. So, but this will give you a chance to see what this industry is all about, what this career field is about.
Thank you.
So.
Anybody else? Oh, yeah.
So the State Patrol hires at 19 and a half. We do have a cadet program, actually. That's right. Say it again. Yes. So those are Trooper Jonna Batiste and Trooper Katie Calello are in the back, and they can tell you a whole lot about the State Patrol. We do ride-alongs. They can give you a whole lot of information. But what I can tell you is that this is a great place to work, 25 years and out, any age. So if you start at 20 years old and 25 years you're done, and then you can go do something spectacular in the other side of the world, right? So you can do it all. I say don't limit yourself. I think that you should do as much as you can in this life. Do as many things as you desire to do. Don't think that anything's too big or too small for you, because it is for you, whatever you want to do. But the State Patrol has some great benefits. We give you a take-home car. We pay for your uniforms. We pay for your education. Yes, we do. And we give you, every time you get a degree, we give you a raise. 2% for an AA, 4% for a bachelor's, and 6% for a master's. So, and you will not have any student loan benefits, bills. Go talk to them.
I like that.
I was just going to put my 2 cents in. At the juvenile court, the way most of us started there was volunteering, and it really is a good opportunity to see what you want to do and to get to experience firsthand, because we don't just sit you on the outside, we put you in the pod with the kids, and you actually get to see what you're going to be doing and what it looks like. And it's also it was a jump in ground for a lot of people who want to go into law enforcement to get that experience with juveniles and kids. And the other thing I'm going to say just real quickly is driver's records. Keep your driver's records. Don't have a lot of tickets and things like that because you're not going to get hired at any of these agencies. Right. So
Thank you.
that's my soapbox. Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
So I just wanted to say that the Department of Corrections, they offer lots of career opportunities. There's lots of room for advancement. You can start out being a corrections officer at a facility, and you could have the opportunity to move across the state to another facility. You could be a classification counselor. There's people that have started as COs. Our secretary right now, Steve Sinclair, he started as a correctional officer, and now he is in the highest position in Department of Corrections Prison Division. So there is plenty of room for advancement, plenty of room for opportunity. Community corrections officers, if you want to work on the streets with people on community custody, that is a great opportunity as well. So Department of Corrections offers lots of room for advancement and training in that department.
My name is Tashina Valenzuela, and I had a question but he almost asked it, but I just retired from the military last year, and I'm in my late 30s, and I always knew I wanted to do law enforcement, so leaving the military, going into this, at this age, do you recommend it?
Absolutely.
This field embraces that. Any of us will be willing to talk to you about that.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition, and at least on our department, there's no age cap. So again, don't get in the way of your success. Age is not a factor. If you can do the job, you can do the job. I do know there are some departments, and I know federally there are some restrictions when it comes to age, but with King County, that's not an option. I just had to say this really quick, though. Talking about getting into this field, like I mentioned before, for me it started with an internship. It started with an internship at Echo Glen Children's Center, working with incarcerated youth. That ended up turning into a full-time job. I know our department, and I'm sure other departments, offer internships. Some of them may or may not be paid, but at a minimum you get credit for it, so that's payment, right? And explore programs for people who are under the age of 20. Most of the departments will have those as well in your area. So just to get yourself exposed to whether or not you would want to do this line of work, just getting all the information you can. And like it was mentioned before, ride-alongs are offered. We offer ride-alongs as well. So get a chance to get into a patrol car in the front seat and see how things work, and realize whether or not that could be something you're interested in.
So my name is Rebecca, and my question is for everyone on the panel is, were there any specific steps you had to do to get into this career field, or was it just kind of like you didn't have to do anything to help give you that boost up if you were kind of small and had to work your way up?
Quickly, I'll just say what prepared me for this job was working at Nordstrom's. Absolutely, absolutely. Customer service is the bottom line, and that if you can talk to people, you can do this job. And communication is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One of those things is that, because I worked in the customer field, and there are a lot of people that are very angry with you in a store. So, when you're dealing with that type of thing, customer service, and they're very angry with you in this field as well at times. So you do have to learn how to do that balance where dealing with the customer is one thing, but dealing with the public in a different way is. And then for us, it's dealing with the people inside. They're all, there's a lot of anger inside. So you really have to be able to learn how to de-escalate and learn how to talk to people in a different way. So those things are a lot of those things that you bring from yourself, but then you also will learn a lot of those skills and traits. And I get this all the time as far as when I was involved with recruiting before, is a lot of the young ladies would come up and talk about their stature and stuff. And let me tell you, as long as you can yell, as long as you've got a voice, you can make it work, okay? So meaning that you don't have to be, it's not about being big and burly and strong and all that, because a lot of times this field embraces females because of the fact that the way we approach things, which is going to be different. It's not about, going and taking people down all the time. Now, do we have to do that at times? Sure, but you're going to learn those skills and traits to be able to keep yourself safe and things. So it's about using, being able to verbalize and to be able to get your point across, and it isn't always about, taking somebody down, so.
And as a trooper, you're in your car by yourself, so all the traffic stops and things you make, you're alone. But I agree 100%. It's not about size. It's about being smart. It's about reading people, and it's about communicating with people. It's not about escalating a situation. And a lot of the times, I think, and I think the ladies would agree with me, is we're not in it for the fight. We're in it to get to the end goal. And if that means I need to help you or I need to put you in cuffs, I can do it respectfully. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. And when you respect people, they tend to respect you back. And my ego's not involved. You have to leave that at home and get things done the safest way possible for everyone involved.
This question is for the entire panel. First, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you guys' willingness to invest in us during this forum, and your voice is very valuable. The question that I have is just looking at the panel and seeing persons of color, and then the double minority of being women. I imagine that you guys are uniquely sensitive to the historical relationship between police and communities of color. And so I wonder if you can talk about the idea of reinforcing that relationship. Is that a frequent topic of discussion at your departments? And if not, do you all feel supported in that mission of pushing that agenda forward?
So who was it? Okay. So I am in a very unique situation. I was talking to Helen and Loy, who both happen to be friends, before we started here. And one of the things we were talking about is diversity issues and trying to get more diverse people in law enforcement. And when I say diverse, immediately people think I'm referring to race or I'm referring to gender. I'm talking about just a diverse mindset. And what I was telling them, I think that the next generation, the generation of law enforcement coming behind us, is going to do a much better job because they're not holding up the flag of I'm colorblind. I'll tell you right now, I don't want people to be colorblind. I want you to know that I'm a black female, right? Because if you dismiss that, you're dismissing a part of who I am. But what I do want you to do is appreciate who a black female is and my culture, and I want to do the same to everybody that I meet. And so we have started having some of these conversations in the State Patrol, and I'm the legislative liaison, so I get to go over on the Hill for the chief and ask for what the State Patrol wants. And one of the things that we ask for this time around is a diversity captain. And so that captain would focus on diversifying our organization. And it's really pretty exciting that it's still in the budget. It hasn't gotten cut out yet. So I think that the State Patrol is taking a whole new approach to this, and I'm really very, very excited about that. We will be 100 years old soon. And we have never, I've been here for 23 years, and we have never had more than 24 African Americans in our organization at one time, right? And we have almost 1,100 troopers. We have 2,200 employees total, but 1,100 of them are commissioned people. We've never had more than 24 since I've been here. So we really have to work on those numbers, and we want to reflect the community that we serve. And that's the way the connectivity starts happening, because people from the Hilltop and people from the south part of Tacoma or North Seattle, we all have to start speaking a language and respecting each other's language and culture and where we came from. Even if I don't speak a second language, I have to at least be willing to listen and try to get assistance for people when they need it. So I think we're doing okay. We're trying to get there. And I believe that all of us have, me having a son who I know goes out every day, and he actually works for the State Patrol now in our communications division, but he wants to be a trooper, haha. So, but I want the world to be a better place for him. I want the world to be a better place for his friends. I want the world to be a better place for all of you. This is not a job that we come to so we can get rich. It's a job so that we can have richness in our heart, knowing that we've done something really great for the community that we live in. So when I move on to whatever it is, the next career that I have, I want to know that I left something great behind.
Pierce County, about 11% of the kids that live in Pierce County between the ages of 11 and 17 are African American. In our facility on any given day, there's about 40% of African American kids that make up the detention population in our facility. So you can see that something is not right, it's off balanced. So a few years ago, I became part of our equity team. And the goal of the equity team initially was to see how we could find programs in the community that supported our kids so that they're not coming to us when they need something. They make a connection out in the community, whether it's at the People's Center or whether it's at the Epic Center or wherever it is. And so we started that with the mission of trying to help our kids. And then what we realized very quickly is that we need to help ourselves before we help these kids, because we have staff issues, peer-to-peer staff issues. We have issues with people who don't really respect the homes they go into. We have volunteers who, just putting it out there, that are, older white women who are advocating for kids who are mostly kids of color. So we realized we had an issue, so we brought in Lou Rochelle Brim Atkins, who is our consultant, and we've been working with her. And some of the things that we're working on is just being kind to each other. Like if someone says something to you, seeing and being allowing some grace. Because sometimes we say things that we really don't mean, but how do we do all this and still do this work? And so it's a challenge, and at the juvenile court, we're working on it every day. And do we have problems? Yes, but hopefully, in the next few years, we'll see some progress.
So a few years ago, the city of Tacoma started a program called Project Peace. And what that was is we sat down with community members throughout the entire city, law enforcement, the mayor, other city management people, and we sat down and we listened. They got a chance to ask us questions, and we got a chance to talk to them. And somebody took stats on the entire thing about what is it that our community members want. And the number one thing was a better relationship with law enforcement and youth, particularly minority youth in the city. They felt that there needed to be some bridge there because there is a huge disconnect. With my kids being in the school district, I did a lot of talks in their classrooms through all ages. And some of it was hard because immediately, as soon as I walked in the room, I could see the students who wanted nothing to do with me because they had already had this idea of this type of person I am based on what they'd seen on social media. And what ended up happening most often was at the end of those sessions, they would come up to me and say, wow, I didn't realize that you're human too, and that you're just like us. And so that communication is really important, to sit down with our youth and get to know each other so they can realize that we're not just police officers, we're human too, and we do make mistakes. And that's okay. And so that's what the city of Tacoma is doing. We have a lot of outreach with our youth now. I do a lot of it, obviously, because I enjoy it. It's not every officer's thing, but we work on it. But it's what we do, and I think that it's going to eventually, in the long run, it's going to make a huge difference in how we're accepted in our community, because those youth are going to grow up and they're going to want to hopefully be involved in law enforcement, and that's all we can ask for.
Does anybody else want to challenge that one?
Challenge.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you guys for coming in. My name is Brennan. A little side note about myself, I've been dealing with back spasms for now since December, and I've been on and off in physical therapy to help get myself better. And I have a question about self-care and how you guys take care of your bodies to make sure that you're healthy for the next day, for the upcoming, who knows what's going on your next day. You only know what's going on today. Tomorrow's a mystery. But how do you encourage yourself to get up every day? Because standing up right now, I'm in a lot of pain. But I want to be able to get myself through this so I can be a better self also. So I want to be able to hear your all input. I'm going to sit down though right now. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll gladly talk about that. That's something that is so important to me. Prior to getting injured back in December, it was an everyday routine that I'm going to make it a point to take care of myself. No matter what I do, I start my day with working out, because if I don't do anything else that day, I did something for me. And making myself a priority. And I mentioned earlier in talking to you all how important it is to pay attention to what you're eating and the things that you expose yourselves to. So toxins and, some people like to engage in some activities that may not be very healthy for them, and know better. If you know better, you should do better. But just taking the time to exercise, and I'm dealing with physical therapy as well, taking those exercises very seriously, because it does help. Just so you know, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, I've been through this 4 times. I don't know what it is about me being hit from behind at stop signs and stuff like that, but I won't run them. But yeah, just taking the time to care for you and making yourself a priority, because once again, if you're not good for you, you cannot be good for others. Diet and exercise is everything, and so follow the instructions of your therapists, and best of luck with your recovery.
And I think I'm just very fortunate. I love early mornings, so I get up at 4 o'clock every morning, and I'm usually... Okay, yes, that is what I do. I'm not an alien. I do like early mornings. It's very quiet. There's nobody else doing anything usually. But that's the time I get up and work out, and I feel like that's something I can do for myself. I have long days, especially during the legislative session. I'm usually in my office by 6, and I'm lucky to be back home by 7 in the evening, and that's 5 days a week, and I'm usually reading more bills and things like that once I get home. So I don't have a lot of downtime, so if I don't find it, I won't find it, right? So I make sure I find that time at 4 in the morning where no one's calling me. People do text me now at 4 in the morning because they know I'm up, but I don't answer. So that's my time to work out. I have a treadmill in my house. Because sometimes I want to be in the house. We have a workout room in our house, and so it's really important for me to do that. I feel very accomplished at the end. No matter how much I do or how little I do, I feel like I've done something that is just for me. And in this line of work, when you're running around with heavy stuff around your waist all the time, it can really take a toll on your back. And I started this job later in life, and I have been very, very blessed not to have any back or shoulder injuries or problems. And I'm sorry, Lloyd keeps getting rear-ended. I don't know what that's about. But I have not been in a car collision or anything like that, and I feel very blessed because of that. So many people that I know in this line of work, by this time, bad knees, bad backs, and bad shoulders are just typical. So take really good care of yourself, and thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. This is my favorite thing to do is like answer questions. So I appreciate the questions, and I appreciate you guys being here.
I just wanted to talk for a second about secondary trauma, because we all deal with a lot of secondary trauma, and so we've also started a task to do that, to help each other with that. About 6 months ago, I had a kid die on my caseload, and so that was the first time I experienced that. 14 years old, took their own life, and so that was a huge deal, and my coworkers really supported me in that. I had to talk to my husband about it because I didn't want to go home and suppress all that stuff, so it was really hard to talk about, but talking about it made it better. We also bring in counselors and stuff to talk to staff when it impacts the staff, and so that secondary trauma is real. You go into people's homes and they tell you their stories, or I go in my office and I open up a file and I'm like, oh, not today, because you're reading about this and it's in your mind, it's all the time, and so having an outlet I like massages, so I'll go get a massage if that's my thing. And then just talking to people about it and letting people know that you're dealing with this. It helps me.
I believe that taking care of your body is extremely important. Watching what you eat, putting good things into your body, getting plenty of rest is good, knowing your limits. Working in the facility, we don't have weapons, we have OC. And in a situation where that is not a big enough deterrent for somebody, you need to know how to use your hands efficiently and use that force. And so working out and taking care of yourself is really important in my line of work.
And it's hard, and I am a sugar fiend, and yeah, I eat sugar, and I'm going to, and I'm addicted, and I'm okay with that. So I work out, and you have to find something to do that you love. If you're just working out because it's like, oh, I hate doing this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, it's not the same. Find your passion. My passion is yoga right now. I'm 54 years old. I want to be upright. I want to walk straight. I want to have good joints. I've changed from my days of lifting heavy weights. I was an athlete. I ran track from elementary school through college, and I was always working really hard. I wore my knees out, and now I'm at the stage in my life where, okay, I need to maintain and I need to get better. And what I found for me is I do still lift weights. I don't do as much cardio as I used to, and I love yoga and I enjoy it, but I'm gonna eat the foods that I wanna eat, but I work out to balance that out. You can do both. I know these guys are like, don't say that, but you know, it's reality. It's reality. You're gonna wanna eat and it's okay. And don't beat yourself up if you sit down and eat a cake, like I do sometimes. It's okay.
Okay.
The whole cake. The whole cake. The whole cake. Oh, yeah.
Only thing I was going to say is that you're never too late to start in life to do these things. So taking care of your body should be ongoing. It's true, but some of us kind of slack off a little bit, and it can be kind of easy. Unfortunately, working in the jail, sometimes you're not always you're active, but you're not. I mean, it's like 0 to 60. You're all of a sudden have to get up and go. So you really have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So, but I wanted to make sure I started again. Took care of myself and then kind of slacked up, and now I'm back to taking care of myself, and so it feels good. And so like I said, it's never too late. You got to make sure that you're doing it. So
Hi, my name is Chrissy. Sorry, I don't like microphones. But I want to be a child advocate lawyer. And I know I've heard many times that you work with children, and I want to know your experience firsthand. Like, you see all of these things and you notice them. How do you separate that from your home life? I mean, I love children, but I don't want to take every experience that I feel home to my husband or my kids or something like that in the future. So how do you depart from that, I guess?
That is a good question, and it's very hard because you deal with other people's children all day, and then you go home to your own. And my daughter's an adult now, but I have an 11-year-old grandson, and sometimes when I go home, he says, "Grandma, tell me what happened today." And sometimes it's fictitious. I'll just make up something just to keep him, entertained. But when my daughter was younger, sometimes I would come home and she would say, "Mom, you look different today." And I would be like, "What do you mean I look different?" She was like, "Something's different about you." And she kind of checked me at the door. But for me, you have to know, like, I came into this field with an invisible S on my chest and wanted to help every kid that I came in contact with. But you just have to know that you can't do that. It's not reasonable. It's not possible. So I just try to help every kid that I can, give them a little bit, the seed, watering the seed and the nurturing. And then at the end of the day, I try to go home. I shut off my cell phone. It's hard sometimes. Shut off my cell phone and just try to regroup. But it is a constant, challenge to find that balance. And like I said, talking to my husband, he kind of knows now. Sometimes he kind of ignores me, but he knows what I do, and I think he supports that. And I have friends who I work with, and we, sometimes hang out or talk about our bad days and support each other with that. But it's hard finding that balance.
Do any of you want to add to that
Yeah.
from being
I'll
in
add
others?
something quickly. In law enforcement, we see horrible things, and one thing about us is that we have kind of what we call a warped sense of humor, and that is our way of surviving. And I'll never forget when I was a brand new officer and I was in field training when I was working in Seattle, I had my first death, and it was a suicide. And the person had been dead for about a week. And so we go in to deal with it, and the officers start making jokes and laughing, and so I didn't realize at the time, and so we're kind of joking around because that's a release, and so that was something that I was learning. But then I opened the front door and walked out, and I was laughing, and the family was standing right there. So that was a real, that was quite the experience, and it just taught me, you have to be aware of what's going on, but I hope they didn't think ill of us, but that's how we deal with it. If we don't have that release and we bottle it up, then nothing good is going to come from that. You have to figure out a way to deal with all of that stress that you see every single day.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dina. I'm originally from San Diego, California, California period, where it's plagued with gangs. And then I moved here, and I still am in the inner city. And in California, the reaction that I got from everybody that I know when I told them I was going into criminal justice was, why we don't do the police, so on and so forth. I come out here, and I let people know, and they're like, oh, I hope I get stopped by you, because I'm cool, but being a woman of color and you all being women of color, how do you deal with the double marginality in law enforcement of African Americans giving preference to other African Americans? I don't want to be the cool person. I want to do my job at the same time, but still advocate for my community. So what insight do you have?
I think that's an excellent question. And in the State Patrol, we give about 50% of the people we stop tickets. There's some things that we just have to do. Criminal activity, we've got to take care of that, right? But if it's the speeding ticket or if somebody failed a signal or whatever it is, it's just a regular traffic violation, it's our discretion who we give a ticket to, right? So if we're only giving 50% of those people out there that we stop tickets, if some of them happen to be African American, you can be cool. Some of them will happen to be white people. Some of them will happen to be Latino. It doesn't matter. It's about making good judgment and good decisions at the time. And you will learn what causes fatality collisions out there on the highway or wherever you are, what the most dangerous behavior is. And you have to take care of that behavior. So people are so grateful when you actually don't give them a ticket. It's actually kind of funny. And so sometimes I'll ask people, and I haven't worked the road in a little while, but when I was working the road, I go, okay, do you want a ticket or do you want a lecture? And I go, be careful and think long and hard, because I can lecture you for a long time. So if you're in a hurry, you might want to take the ticket. And so sometimes I just felt really great about being able to communicate with people and connect with them. And so it's okay to be cool in the job that you do. Sometimes people were just really happy to see a female, because it used to be for the State Patrol, you'd have to be 6 feet tall. And so people still have that embedded in their mind, especially when I first started. And they would go, you're not 6 feet. I said, I am. In my mind, I'm about 6'2". And so, and they were surprised to see me as a female. They were surprised to see the fact that I was black. And so there were all kind of conversations that would happen. And I always tell people, I don't get paid by the stop. I get paid to be out there. Right? And so if people wanted to have a conversation, I would talk to them. And I would explain to them why their behavior was so dangerous and how they could hurt themselves and other people. And, so it's okay to be cool. You should be cool as a cop.
So I can't agree more. For one, I am nobody's get out of jail free card. I don't care what we have in common. Just because we have that common ground does not mean it's an automatic, yeah, you're good. And I've had that before where people are like, won't you hook me up? You know what time it is. No, it doesn't work that way. But I can tell you this, there's time, just like Monica said, there's time for discretion. And we pick and choose when to use it, but I love just teachable moments. And sometimes people think that, you can get a hookup because of common ground, and they don't understand the severity of what they've done. And I can talk all day a person into cuffs, before fighting them into cuffs. And, most of the times, I can be very honest with you, I've had people thank me. And not only just because this is what needed to happen as a consequence of your behavior, but thank you for treating me like a human being. Thank you for explaining what happened. And I use my utmost professionalism with people because at the end of the day, everybody deserves respect. And so for me, yeah, there's times to be cool where you can use your discretion, and then you can still be cool when you're using your professionalism and making sure that people understand why it is that this decision was made or why it is that this is the outcome. Yeah.
I was going to say real quick, I was 30 years ago when I first started, it wasn't cool to be African American and working in the jail. And so it took a hard hit on me, and there was as far as, I hate to say name calling, but there wasn't, the disconnect was there definitely with even the African American inmates and us. And so that kind of was one of those things that eventually it just kind of worked its way out. And it's now just about respect. And you can, like she said, you can be considered cool by Caucasian inmates as well as African American inmates, and it doesn't matter to me. But now it isn't that, I don't have that disconnect with the African American inmates like I did in the very beginning when I first started, because it wasn't cool back then to be that. And I was when I first got hired on, I was actually the third African American female to get hired on. And so, but then since then we've grown, and now it's just, again, a matter of respect, and that's what they see is that I'm just doing my job, and I can do my job and be respectful and be cool at the same time, so.
Thank you, high school students.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Garcia, and I just want to thank all of you guys for encouraging us. Seeing all you beautiful women makes me proud to be a woman. And I had a question for my friend. That she wants to know, how do you guys keep humble? How do you guys don't let your ego, I guess it goes based on the other girl's question, but the other side. Like, what if you guys having a bad day that day and you just want to be mean, or you let your ego take over? Well, how do you guys stay humble?
So I had a friend in college who posted a lot of different things and problems and stuff, and once posted, be responsible for the energy that you put out in the world. And I hold on to that. I hold on to that dearly. My energy does not need to be transferred, my negative energy. And yes, like I said, there are days that I'm like, I don't feel like doing this today. But I have to be very mindful to keep myself in check and to always remain a professional, because like I said before, in my opinion, everybody deserves respect, and I don't have to have a person give me respect first for me to give it back. However, there comes a time where, once the line is drawn and once the line is crossed and it's continued disrespect that gets in the way of what needs to be accomplished, then we deal with that then. But at the end of the day, I'm being paid to do this. I chose this profession. I chose to serve. And it's really important to me personally to project the right type of energy that I want to receive in return. So I make it a point to be responsible for that on my own.
And I'm just very, very blessed to have this job. I really love it, and I never forget that I am a public servant. And that means I'm here to serve the public. And so, yeah, we do have bad days, but take that day off, right? I know how to make myself feel better. It's called shopping. No, listen, I have a lot of leave time on the books, and if I'm having a bad day, there's no need for me to share that. But I have to be honest with you, I am so blessed. I really don't have a lot of bad days. I might have a few bad moments, and I have a huge support team. And I will call one of those people in my speed dial and say, I am really feeling some kind of way today. But I don't transfer that to the public. You don't deserve it. You deserve my very best every single day, every time I'm out there. And like Loy said, we choose to do this. Nobody's making me do this. I can leave tomorrow. I'm not in handcuffs. And so I remind myself of that. And it's not your problem if I'm having a problem. It's my problem to solve. And I'm a big girl. I can solve my problems one way or another, or I can stay at home and stay in the house until I get better. So I just appreciate being able to work with the public. I appreciate being able to do this job. It's amazing. I mean, everybody doesn't get to do this. Everybody doesn't want to do it, but everybody doesn't get to do it. And I get to do it. And I'm going to always honor that. And I'm going to always honor you as the public that I serve.
Are y'all answering?
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I talk a lot. I love my job. I have the unique situation in that I live where I work. So when I am off duty, I am shopping in the same grocery stores as a community that I work with. So everybody knows me, and my kids hate going anywhere with me because it's always a long conversation. People always want to talk to me and tell me about their day. And the thing that I like best about it is that I have people come up to me and thank me for arresting them, and they will tell me how it changed their lives. So I get to see the after effect of everything that I do because those people are still in my community, and that's the kind of officer that I wanted to be. So I'm living my dream. I love what I am doing, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So I don't really see that there's an ego. It's just that's my community. I am part of the community.
Working with kids, as you know, sometimes can be a little troubling. But I just try to remember that this child is, we're seeing them at their worst. Like, I've been arrested. For most of them, it's new. And so I try to remember that. And I try to remember that, how would I want someone to treat my child if this was my child? And so I would say, does it pass the my child test? So I try to treat families and sometimes parents, feel judged because their kids are in the system. And so I just remind them that this could be my child sitting in that seat. By the grace of God, they weren't, but it could have been my child sitting in that seat because at the end of the day, we send our children out into the world and we don't know what they're going to do. We try to teach them and try to hope that they, catch on to things like that, but make good choices, but that's not always the case. And so on any given day, that could be any of our kids sitting, on that side of the law and having to go to court. And so I just try to remind families that, we're all in this together. I'm a mom. And at the end of the day, these are my children too, and I take my job very serious in that aspect. That I try not to judge kids for where they are. I try to meet them where they are.
For me, maintaining a positive attitude is really important because I do take what I do very seriously, and I do take the opportunity to represent Department of Corrections very seriously as well. And sometimes in my position, particularly as an investigator, we're not always the most well-receptive visits when we go and have interviews with our offenders. It's not always a good thing, and we're not always respected. And so just remembering that I have a job to do, this is what I do, and doing it skillfully and professionally is something that's always in the back of my head. Maintaining that professionalism is really important. And luckily, I am fortunate enough that I have a supervisor that allows me to vent to him when I need to, so that I can do it in a closed, professional way, away from ears that, don't need to hear it. So that's how I deal with it.
Well, I think bottom line for me is, again, because we're in that type of environment where you are dealing with a lot of people that can be negative a lot, and so it does have an impact on you on how you're going to deal with people and how they're coming at you. So I do have to put myself in check. I have to remind myself, you know, you have to catch yourself and stop yourself from allowing yourself to play into or go that far. So does it test you? Sure it does. But then when you pull yourself back and realize that it's, you're not going to let this situation get the best of you, and that you end up walking out and you win, and when I say win, meaning that you're better for it, when you walk out and you can say, I handled that situation, okay, I didn't let anybody get to me, and the big picture is I de-escalated it, and this is what happened. I took care of the situation without going, you know, 12 steps above the person. So it does take it can be challenging, but for the most part, if you remind yourself that it's all about you and the picture that you're going to present, and in the long run, what the end result is, taking care of the situation, you just have to do what you can to make it work for yourself.
I would just like to say thank you for everyone for their questions and to the answers that we received. They were really informative. However, we are running out of time, and we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to go to the vendors. And, I do have one last question, though, for the whole panel. What would be one final piece of wisdom you would leave with us here? And we do have an audience on our live stream. What would you leave? Can we start with Yolanda?
Well, I would have to say, if you're going to choose, if you're going to choose to go into this profession, prepare yourself as much as you can. Educate yourself. If it's whatever agency you're going to test for or you're going to apply for, make sure you are aware of what the agency is all about. So I would definitely say prepare yourself, and that is obviously physically as well. When I say physically, if you're going to be taking a test for this, making sure that you don't take it for granted that you can do 50 sit-ups, 50 push-ups, or whatever. Make sure that you can do that before you get to the test. And so just prepare yourself as much as you can, and like I said, just educate yourself as much as you can, because it's going to present a better picture when you go in front of boards and things like that, that they know that you are here for them. You know, you're here to apply for this agency, and you're telling them that I chose you to want to work for, and so I know about this agency. So educate yourself as much as you can. The information is obviously out there.
What I would say is be yourself. In law enforcement, there are a lot of different personalities, and when you first get into the job, you see how different people do it, and you might want to try to be like that officer, like this other officer. You have to figure out how to do it on your own and do it your own way. If you noticed, I'm the only one that wears this hat, right? Very few officers like to wear the 8-point hat. They say it looks like a bus driver. But for me, what I found when I started in Seattle, they made me walk the footbeat with the guys that had been on for like 35 years. And they made me wear the hat. And I was like, oh, I don't want to wear this stupid hat. So I wear the hat, and I realize people start treating me differently. Nobody calls me babe. Nobody calls me hun. They actually think that I'm in charge or I'm a supervisor. And so I will use that to this day. You know, people think that when I show up and I have this hat on that I'm something extra special and they're more respectful towards me. I'll take it, even though I'm just a regular patrol officer at work. So find your niche, find what works for you, and just be you when you get into this job. I think that's the most important thing.
I would just have to say that remember that you represent an agency or a department while you're at work and while you're off work, and keep trying to find opportunities for yourself to progress your career. Don't stop. Don't let people tell you that you can't do something because of your size or race or gender. Just don't stop trying. Keep doing it, because this is your life, this is your career, and this is what you're going to have to live with.
I would just kind of echo what's been said, is to stay true to yourself, whatever that means to you. If you're small, like some of the women have said, find out how you can be the best you. And then lastly, just whatever your passion is, make sure you follow that. and don't change because that's the way the system is set up to do. Especially as women, we have a tendency to kind of hide behind the veil, and we kind of do what other people do. But, you know, be the person that steps out in the front and do something different, create something different, create a better working environment for the women who are coming up behind you.
And I was advised not to join the State Patrol when I was looking at law enforcement. A lot of people said, don't join the State Patrol, you're not going to like it there, they're not going to like you, they don't like women, they don't like blah, 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 blah. And I go, okay, I'm going to join the State Patrol. And so it's the best decision I've ever made in my life, other than having my son. It honestly is, it has changed my life. I had a couple of years of college before I started with Patrol. They paid for the rest of my degree. It has been, I can tell you a whole lot of really great things. So I say, follow your heart. Follow what you want to do. Do not let other people control your life, because at the end, you have to answer for what you did or did not do, and you can't blame anyone for it.
In addition to all of this wonderful information and advice that you all got, I can't emphasize enough, empower yourself. Empower yourself with information, doing the research to make sure that you find an agency or an organization that's a good fit for you. Not just the profession, but then once you narrow down what it is that you want to do, make sure that you find the right place for you, because every different agency and organization has a different personality that may or may not be your fit. Empower yourself with education, empower yourself with the social networks that are going to help you to succeed. And then finally, when you are going into these jobs, get used to talking about yourself. It's painful, trust me. It's taken a lot for me, almost 18 years for me to get to a point where I can publicly speak about myself. But get used to it, because as you look toward promotions and things like that, you're going to have to talk about yourself and what it is that you bring to the table. So starting now, get to know your resume. And I'm not talking about just a piece of paper, I'm talking about what it is that you bring to the table. What's so special about you? Who cares about your competition? That doesn't matter, because I can only bring what I can bring. Know what you bring to the table, be prepared to talk about those things, and be prepared to build on those. And just being here today, I can assure you, I'm sure all of you are on your road to success, and I do wish you the absolute best in your endeavors, and thank you so much for being here and for having us.
I'd like to thank everyone again for coming, and to our guest speakers for sharing, and I hope from their experiences something resonated with you guys and hopefully make a positive change in the world. Thank you again for everyone for showing up. The vendors are still going to be here, so the agencies are going to stick around, and the speakers, so it kind of gives everyone a chance to talk to them and get to figure out, I don't know, continue, I don't know. Oh my God, please feel free to stay and talk and enjoy each other. Thank you.